From the dawn of time to the age of steel, people have rocked. Hello and welcome to Massive Riffs. I'm your host, Dr. Massive. So, Rick Beato just put out a video. Is Taylor Swift bigger than the Beatles? All right, let's do this. Here we go. Now, this is a great discussion. Rick starts out by showing, I guess this was an article from the New York Times, and it talks about the number one hits from the Beatles right here versus the number one hits from Taylor Swift right over here. Sorry, I'm blocking that a little bit here. Okay. So Rick tries to make the point that Taylor Swift creating music is not the same as the Beatles creating music or making hits, because Taylor Swift ended up going to a bunch of different producers and using them to create the backbeats or the backups or the instrumental parts to her songs. Let's see. I think he lists here. Look at, these are all the people. Right? These are all the people that she has listed as producers on her albums. So Rick makes the point that these guys are producers and they're making backing tracks, and that's not quite the same as, say, what the Beatles did, where they're making all original music. I'm going to have to go ahead and disagree with Rick on this, and let me tell you why. I want to bring this to one of my favorite guitar players. His name is Joe Satriani. He's one of the greatest guitar players in the universe. This guy is like a space alien, okay? He's incredible. He did an album, Crystal Planet, and I think he did an interview in Guitar World or something where he talked about using a Macintosh or a MacBook computer. And what he talked about doing was recording his solos and then going into the MacBook and editing his solos. And he was just talking about how it was so much easier to edit on the computer instead of, splicing together tape or just having to redo the takes over and over. And he's out of tape. He can't do any more takes. So he's got to splice together the right notes in the right spots. And now he's just moving graphics on a computer to create the exact solo that he wants. And I understood that, and that's awesome. But the first time I heard that kind of killed the magic of Joe Satriani, the magic of, he just creates he just plays these magical creations, and he can play anything, and he's so incredible. No, he's a great guitar player, and he innovates, but his workflow is the same as mine. He records, and then he goes and uses a computer, and the computer produces the final sound. So is Joe Satriani a producer now? Is he a musician? I would say he's still a musician. He's a musician using his guitar, his original guitar recording to play a computer, to play a DAW, which then edits it, where he then can edit and control what it does to the signal. So he is acting as a producer in a way, but he is still a musician because he created the signal and he's putting out exactly what he wants it to be. So I don't know if we can say that producers are not musicians if the producers are making original music. Okay, and he cites, I guess, one of Taylor Swift's first, big hits, and he talks as the Max Martin and the Shellback people and how they made the backing track for it. To me, that's no different than a band like Metallica, losing a bass player, going out and finding another bass player, and then later they fire their bass player and they go find another bass player. The show must go on, and sometimes it's like next man up. When you're in the studio, you get whoever you can to put out the best track that you can put out, right? And hopefully everyone in the studio is happy with it, and hopefully the original artist is happy with it. But that's the job. And sometimes you got the producer playing the bass player's part because the bass player can't play it in time. I mean, I've seen that happen. I've heard about it happening. It's not that uncommon. So when you go in the studio, you do whatever it takes to get the best sound out. And hopefully one or two people in that room will have a vision, and they'll kind of help guide the rest of the group to finish some kind of cohesive vision. Dude, they're all musicians. To me, they're creating music. If these people created a bass line and a guitar riff, and then Taylor Swift took that, to me, they're at least recording musicians who contributed to Taylor Swift's songs. And to me, yeah, I guess they're Taylor Swift's songs, but these other people played on them. They in my mind, they own a part of the song. Maybe not legally, maybe Taylor Swift owns it all, but they are the creators of at least a portion of that song. Okay? So that's what I disagree with Rick about. Okay? You're wrong, Rick. You're wrong. But not wrong in the sense that there's a big difference between Taylor Swift and the Beatles, right? And it's just, I don't think you should, when the New York Times says that Taylor Swift bigger than the Beatles, no, that really strikes me the wrong way as well. So I did a little bit of analysis, and I wanted to talk about 3 differences between Taylor Swift and the Beatles. Okay? So let's get into it. Why is Taylor Swift different than the Beatles? Why is it inappropriate to try to do a comparison to say Taylor Swift bigger than the Beatles? Right? Well, here's what I think. Okay? Taylor Swift is using the producers, as Rick talked about in his video. The producers are a short-term solution or a short-term mindset. They are trying to make the music that is popular at the moment, right? They're looking at what's around them, and that's what they're going to make, whatever they think is going to be popular, based on their skill set and based on what actually is selling and what is popular. But a producer could very quickly change when the winds of the populism change, right? So that their likes or their what they're putting out or how they're making music is more dependent on what is popular, right? Whereas a band, I feel like while they are copying and while they do, try to get into whatever genre or whatever style is popular, once they get there, they usually stay there. They don't continuously change. And I mean, yes, some of them do try to change, but usually that, it's never as good as the initial impression, the initial genre of success that a band gets into. So when you think about a band and you think about what they do and their perspective, it's long term, whereas working with producers is kind of a short term thing where I just feel like if you go into it saying, I'm going to work with a producer to make a pop song, yes, you are trying to be popular at that moment, but you aren't necessarily trying to create or move the bar forward, right, with something that's going to stand the test of time, because you are going into it from the beginning saying, okay, I just want to take this popular sound now. Okay, so give it to me. Give me this cool sound right now. So I think there's just a difference in the context of how they're creating music and how they look at it. And this, I think, Rick definitely alludes to this when he talks about the just the different environments and the fact that Taylor Swift went out and looked for all the different producers, and she made a conscious decision, hey, I want to do pop, right? Whereas I think a lot of bands don't necessarily say, hey, I want to do pop. I just want to create some cool music that fits into some kind of category that some people are going to like, right? And then maybe it gets big, maybe it doesn't. But to me, that's more of a long-term thought than, um, the short term of I'm intentionally looking for specifically what's going to be popular now, right? Because I'm talking to this popular producer or this big time producer. Um, okay, that's one. Now, the second one, so in this one maybe favors the Beatles. Maybe they're a little bit more legitimate than, say, Taylor Swift. And I could understand that argument. Now, second, this one I think favors Taylor. I don't even think you should compare metrics from way back when the Beatles were first getting big to Taylor Swift getting big right now, because just from the standpoint of the competition and what was out there, I mean, there was nothing else to listen to. There were no other genres. I mean, it was like bebop, classical. I mean, come on. So for the to say that the Beatles, broke boundaries, yes, they definitely did. But I think something needs to be said from the fact that there were plenty of boundaries to be broken because we hadn't broken them at all. There was still so much unexplored music that you could almost luck into new sounds just by being creative, by being a little bit creative. You could luck into a brand new sound. Okay, so I think looking at it, and as opposed to Taylor Swift, who lived in an era where we had unlimited media, unlimited bands, where, I mean, literally, how do you get on top of the wall of noise of everybody trying to talk, everybody trying to put content out, everybody trying to play music? She somehow maneuvered the all of that in order to find the right people to get to the top. That is impressive to do. I'm sorry, in this day and age with all the competition, all the great sounding stuff, that is impressive to do. And I think something should be said for that. And I think that definitely favors Taylor. Um, and again, it makes me uncomfortable to do any sort of comparison between the two because the whole environment of music was completely different when the Beatles did it. Okay? So, I had one more here, and this one I think is probably the most important. Okay? Um the Beatles, I feel like they launched a cycle of music. And by cycle, I just mean a round where you have these musicians that become very popular and their style, their vibe is copied by everybody. All the other bands start to copy it, and then all the producers start to copy it, and the radio stations will only play those songs that fit into it. That is a cycle. We had the 80s. We had that overproduced, just really poppy synth sound. We had the 90s. We had the grunge that just, I'm sick of the 80s and here's something a little more real and kind of depressing. Um, and then I think after that, yes, there was the 2000, there was a new metal, kind of a recreation, but after that I kind of feel like, and then there was rap and hip hop, I think has been at the top for a long time. And now I feel like it's more fusion where it's let's reinvent the sounds and let's find something new, right? So the Beatles started a cycle. Dude, they inspired Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, and he just flipped rock on its head. Okay? So the Beatles were doing something innovative and inspirational, and they led a cycle of just amazing new sounds and I mean, from just the standpoint of distortion and just pushing the guitar a little bit harder. Oh my gosh! And then all these crazy effects and using verbs and doing all kinds of just awesome sounds, awesome vibes. And they were original. They didn't have anybody else to really copy off of. They just had to create. very impressive. Whereas as Rick Beato said, Taylor Swift decided, hey, I want to do pop. I'm going to seek out producers, and I mean, she's incredible, and she did it in a way that got her voice and her personality out there, where she can move the world, and she can lift up groups just by mentioning them in a song. It's incredible. And she understood the system, she understood the landscape of music and the environment, and she maneuvered her way to get there, to get to the top. Um, but I feel like she was at the end of a cycle. I don't feel like she innovated. I feel like she leaned on the innovations of the previous cycles and she nailed it. But I don't know if she innovated. I feel like she led the end of a music cycle. And why do I think it's the end of a music cycle now? Well, everything's getting a little bit stale. You got that one dude who came out of the woods and he's just playing on his acoustic, and like millions of people are listening to it. Like, yeah. So you see, there's a band called Robot Monster that's starting to go on YouTube, and the focus of their music is the rhythm guitars and the drums. And that's how you get back to the beginning. That's how you start a new cycle. That's how you reimagine a genre and create a whole new vibe that the next generation of producers is going to copy and give to the next Taylor Swift when they come asking for it. I'm hearing that now. That is starting right now, right? So I feel like Taylor Swift rode that cycle all the way up, and now we're kind of peaking, and now it's starting to wind down, right? And it's winding down because everybody who's not at that top, who's not in that zone right now, is starting to push with their music. They're starting to see, okay, what's going to resonate? What do people actually want to hear now, right? And music has to change over time. So Beatles launched a cycle. Beatles inspired. Taylor Swift, I think, is ending a cycle right now. So again, saying one is bigger than the other, I think you should do that within the context of where we are in the music cycle, right? How many producers have jumped onto a common tone or sound and they're all trying to do the same thing? How many number one hits sound almost exactly the same? They use the same equalization. The drums sound the same. Everybody's using the same tricks, right? I mean, gosh, in the hip hop with the rap songs now, just listening to it, they all sound the same. So we need something new. Maybe we need to get back to the rap rock and combine them, but do it in a new way, in a different way that it wasn't done before, like they were doing it in the, I think, early 90s. It was the rap rock and the new metal and stuff. That was a cool genre. That was a cool difference, but I think we need something else, just to get people engaged and capture people's attention. I want to believe that we can still have great big bands that stand the test of time and just that we're going to be talking about years from now, bands like Metallica. So I'm waiting to see that happen. I'm excited to see music reinvent itself once again. So, all right, that's all I had, not to ramble. Rick, love the video, love the topic. I disagree with your reasoning, but I agree with your final conclusion that it's a faulty question. There's just too many differences between Taylor Swift and the Beatles. Anyway, that's all I had. Take care, everyone, and remember, be massive.